Welcome and thanks for joining us. My guests today are Richard Breakiron. He's the Senior Director for Strategic Initiatives for America's Federal Sector at Commvault. We also have David Rubel, Senior Business Development Manager for Federal Hybrid Cloud at Amazon Web Services, and Kevin Cronin, the co-founder and president of Kelyn Technologies. Gentlemen, good to have you back.
Thank you.
Good to be here.
Yeah,
Thank you.
And the parade goes on, the merry-go-round keeps turning, and now
does.
we are in the era of customer experience, which is somehow tied very closely to the mission outcome for federal agencies, and this is really by policy and edict from the White House and from Congress, really, too. So agencies nevertheless struggle, especially when it comes to tying modernization to the digital experience, to the digital services, to the CX side of it. And so how can you guys help?
So I think one of the things that we're really focused on is looking at the convenience factor for not only the end user of the systems and the cloud digital modernization, but you need to look at the convenience for the operators, the people that are doing the work on a day-to-day basis to keep things up and running. So we're really trying to hone in on that. When you're thinking about a cloud migration, a lot of times you think lift and shift is putting some of the same things that you have now into the cloud, just in a different location. And really what you need to do is kind of take a step back, take time, gather your thoughts, and put together a really good plan on how you can utilize a lot of the technologies that are in the cloud that present you opportunities to make things more efficient. And when you make things more efficient, obviously you end up with a happier set of customers, and the convenience factor goes through the roof. I think we've all kind of become experts in efficiency. When things, not necessarily that you know how to make things more efficient, but you know when they're not efficient, right? So we're all, we all have our apps on our phones, and we all have the daily lives that we live, and we know when things aren't working right. And so when you make that journey, you want to make sure that that your constituents are all taken care of, all your stakeholders have that convenience factor and the usability that is perfect for the cloud.
Yeah, that idea of usability, convenience, efficiency in the eye of the beholder, that is the citizen we're trying to serve, it can be really frustrating if the integration and the intuitiveness doesn't come down to that mobile device. Then you really haven't got there yet.
No, I think that's absolutely true. And I think people forget to realize that convenience gives you resiliency. And believe it or not, that's one of the key goals that you always see in managing risk in doing anything in the government. And so I go back to Kevin's opening comment and your opening comment, Tom, that we forget that convenience isn't just only for the end customer, but there are a lot of intermediate layers. Like when we bring out this little mobile phone, we look at the app, but behind the scenes, there are a lot of things that have been done to optimize the operation of this capability to be able to interface immediately with the cloud. I don't have to think twice about it. Somebody already figured it out. They knew how to move my files up so I don't have to worry about it. And all of a sudden, if this gets broken or lost, I haven't lost anything because it's sitting up there, it's ready to be recovered, and the beauty of it is somebody automated it for me. So the key is to get the government to recognize, I think at times, to have people come in and help them understand their processes to know what can be automated. And because that's the part that they can really help with. What do you think, Dave?
I was going to say, Dave, it's fair to say probably that the best commercial organizations long past the days of operating enterprise national applications from their data centers.
So, and to both of the gentlemen's comments, it really comes down to getting to the point where operational consistency is an objective. However, the technology, in this case, however cloud is instantiated, whether it's in the data center, in say the AWS data center, whether it's a combination of that on-prem or even at the edge, where things out there, network connectivity is limited potentially, but yet you just want that same operational consistency to make it convenient, to make things consistent so that when you create process and you execute those processes in the cloud, it's the same experience however that cloud is instantiated. from edge to cloud and cloud to edge. One other comment here in terms of we're defining modernization as it pertains to the federal government, and there's a couple of points I'd like to make there. It's people, process, and technology. And sometimes we get ahead of ourselves with technology ahead of the people and process and say, well, they'll catch up. The reality is that doesn't happen. So it starts to be becoming where you have the technology leading the discussion, but there has to be equal effort put into taking a look at the skills of people, uplifting skills, adapting, and then also the processes which also have to modernize. What you did 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, even last week, may be drastically different than what you need to do today just because of the way that your mission is operating. And we're fortunate in this day and age to be able to have the ability to say, and to Kevin's point, where data lives. It doesn't need to live just in one place anymore, just on-premise. It can live on-premise, versions of it. Backups can live on-premise, in the cloud, maybe a couple of instantiations. A lot of flexibility comes with that umbrella of modernization. Convenience, making it easy to use, making it operationally consistent.
So you do have to do some infrastructure work,
Yes.
to produce that resilience, convenience, and operational consistency regardless of where people are.
So one of the things, you've seen us always come here as three. And this is an ultimate representation, in my mind, of convenience. Mm-hmm. It's funny, when you go into any group or organization and you have a solution, okay, I have a piece of that solution. Commvault has a piece. I can tell you all the great things about backup recovery, risk management, resiliency, recovery, how it plays into cyber defense, but it's one piece. Here's the infrastructure piece. Here is the managed service piece. It's funny, when I can deliver an outcome, that's convenience for a customer. How many of us go down to the auto store and buy enough pieces to build our own car? You could do it. Not very convenient. But that I think is what, again, industry and especially government agencies, I find every time I go and I talk to senior leaders who are involved in IT, the complexity has gone up exponentially, and yet they need something to bring something that works with a simplicity and convenience, because that actually reduces risk for them. And again, that's why you always see us here in a three. I don't know.
Yeah.
No, I think, so one of the things that we've done is we've taken, as Kelyn, we've taken a combination of AWS and Commvault, and we put it together. We created a process for making sure that the outcome is the same across the board, whether it's an on-prem customer or an AWS customer or both, a hybrid customer. The solution is the same. There is no difference. We manage both the same way. We set customers up for success in that manner, and it's a combination of everything.
We'll have to dub you guys the Kingston Trio. Maybe. That's a good way to go forward. Well, give us some examples of where this has worked. I mean, in my own experience, I think the transportation sector, where you impinge on the federal government, where a traveler touches the federal government or vice versa, is a good example of real progress. But what are you seeing?
Just a couple of quick comments. I think in today's environment, all aspects of government are data generators. Transportation, administration, defense, public services, critical infrastructure are all data generators. So the question is that how do we continue to be able to offer the services that are critical in each one of those mission areas, but yet evolve the data management mindset? Government agencies, and we were talking about convenience and processes, protocols sometimes are defined and people follow the protocol specifically as they're written without understanding that there may be some evolution to those processes and protocols. So I think there's an opportunity here in this era of data generation by government agencies for agencies to consider that the data management aspect, since data is so important to the operation of the agency, that they have to spend some time and effort to rethink and continually to evolve their data management strategy as well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Data is that lifeblood today. it really is what, in a digital transformation, you cannot put, I don't care if you're in the military, you can't put ground troops where they need to be in the world today without that type of understanding. If you're trying to get groceries to my house, if we're trying to get to DC traffic to get here on time, if I don't have that application that integrates that capability, I'm not really going to be here. I call it cradle to grave. And today, more than ever, the federal government is looking to try and interface with its citizenry and make themselves transparent. They want to expose the data, and yet they need to make sure that the data is secure, it's not corrupted, it doesn't put agencies at risk when they let a public portal be open. And that whole cradle to grave, though, concludes with, oh, I have to hand this off to the National Archives at the very end of the day, and they have a format in which they want it. And, oh, by the way, when that was first figured out, it was working with paper and microfilm maybe, and maybe some tapes, but now it is all virtual. Most archival data for agencies is in some type of cloud, being supported by some type of administrator. And, oh, by the way, we didn't have drone video. We didn't have potential holograms. I'm seeing more all of a sudden come out with that. So there's a whole brand new maturity, as David was talking about, to be able, okay, how do I get this to the next level? And so for me, it is about designing an architecture. Architecture really, really matters today. It's like the simple thing is, I go into a hospital, I don't want to have doors be opened by people. I want doors to automatically know I'm pushing a gurney with an emergency patient. That's an architecture issue, believe it or not. Now it's being implemented with technology and with services and support, but at the fundamental level, it's an architecture. Do I use an optical reader? Do I do a sensor on the floor? Do I do a button? Is it security where I have to wave it in front of something to let somebody into the surgical area? All those things is where I see. And the whole point is, if you're going to make it convenient, you got to have that architecture right, and you got to have some planning done up ahead, as Kevin brought up.
And where that really matters is, we talk about resilience. If we're talking about the data management space, you need a really good plan to make sure that your data, if you're going to have a backup in a different location or a recovery point, you need to make sure that all of the data is there. You need to test it. You need to make sure that the architecture that you've designed works. And oh, by the way, you also need to make sure that the data is clean, that it doesn't have some embedded ransomware or something like that on top of all of that. And so that's really what we're focusing on, is making sure that customers end up with a clean solution to manage their data and their infrastructure and bring it up in the right location, time, all those types of things. Bring them online, help customers stay resilient.
So in deploying applications, agencies are tending toward thinking from the customer experience back in. Mm-hmm. That is, journey mapping what it is their client or their constituent has to do, and then working backwards through the systems to do that. Mm-hmm. So that's really the convenience-based approach, right? Here's what we want to be convenient for our users. So what are the top considerations when you're thinking in those terms? Once you know, here's how I would like this to be, here's the experience I envision, then what do you do and get that built in to deliver?
Yeah, Tom, I think that's a great point. The notion of build it and they will come is pretty much gone these days, and especially around government. You have to work backwards from the capability, the requirement, to actually ensure that what's being developed aligns. And that applies to the full stack, everything from the network infrastructure up through the application and then the UX, the user experience. I think we're at a particular interesting time now where convenience is ruling the day. IT shops in the government are looking for ways to be able to operationalize things instead of having to do separate, unique things for every separate system and every separate solution. Mm-hmm. Try to get to that operational consistency we were talking about. But we also have to make sure that as an agency, that the agency is adopting broad policies to be able to handle the variety of different types of data in the case of healthcare and these combinations of data kind of plays back to what we were saying earlier. A comprehensive data management scheme, architecture, approach is incredibly important.
I really think, Tom, and I agree with both David and Kevin here. So think about the convenience right now from a Commvault perspective is, I want somebody who's having trouble, they've got something happen to their computer, they need to bring back files, whatever. The goal is to let them do it themselves. In other words, the closer I can get their abilities. So I need an interface now that is really, really, really dashboard. It's got to be very user-friendly. It's got to be very, very intuitive. And the complexity to do that behind the scenes is really, ironically, goes up exponentially. The easier you want to make that interface, believe it or not, what goes on behind actually requires more. You want to fly a jet, is the funny thing in the Air Force. The kids that are maintaining it say, yeah, flying it is easy because we've made it so intuitively easy. We gave you a heads-up display and things are doing things for you. But come back here where we have to fix it and make sure it all works right. So I think that's where I see industry is going, as they keep trying to bring that convenience. We do it day to day in our commercial lives. I don't deal with a travel agent anymore. I deal with an interface. I want that interface to be really, really, really easy for me to use. I want it to automatically collect my receipts. I want it to fill out my travel report. I don't want to do anything but hit the button saying, yeah, I agree.
You want it to be self-service.
I do want it to be self-service.
But to that point, convenience is immemorable.
Yeah.
Nobody, you don't think about, you don't remember how convenient something was. You just remember when it's not convenient, right?
It's so true.
So the gist of that is we as this group here, we need to focus on making that so convenient that people forget about us, right?
All right, so how do you work together behind the scenes to make this happen?
So at Kelyn, we use Amazon as our hosting service for our customers. And if the agency requires it, we use their version and not our version. And we use Commvault. And so that the combination, we have the best enterprise class data protection software available on the market today, with the leading vision of Amazon to bring us the infrastructure, and then we utilize the things that are inside of Amazon to make it convenient for ourselves too, right? So we're consumers of our own product and consumers of the technologies. We put all that together and we build that solution so that it's essentially invisible or almost invisible to the customer.
So Commvault, many years ago when they came out of Bell Labs, they had some tremendous engineers and architects that realized this was coming, and I honestly believe that. And they built an architecture that said, you will only be able to manage the complexity if you break down the storage plane from the data management plane from the control plane. Because notice the customer in each instance is different. So the individual user wants to be able to do a simple restoral. Okay, they don't need to know what's going on at the control plane level. And by separating those out, you get enormous convenience. You get greater security, because now you can build security at appropriate levels based on who the user is. And as a combination, they give you the ability to do that resilient restoral. And then they open up the door also for helping, ironically, the next leap forward that you're going to see now come in today's world is, okay, I've got you back up and running. Do you know how many people then come to us and say, okay, now what do I do? And you go, you kick off your business process to Bing your business. And they look at you and that's another business area. And again, I'll be self-aggrandizing with Commvault. They went out and they bought a company that does that because they felt that was a piece that they needed to, it's a service piece that is not something you automate. You have to help people understand their business process to bring their operations back up, ironically.
All right. Final word, David?
I think really, and the comments by both Kevin and Richard are completely aligned with the notion of elasticity, flexibility, automation, building an environment that is architecturally led, that allows you to achieve the mission capabilities of mission faster in a more operationally consistent way. And that applies to everything from everything in the stack to how data is managed, how data is used, how the permissions of data, who has access to what, and then the long-term viability of that data over a period of time. Government agencies used to be of the mindset, well, we have to keep data for a certain amount of time and then it can be deleted. Now, because of cyber threats in all directions and the requirement to go back and actually prove that an event occurred from an incident perspective, we need to keep data forever now. So it drastically changes the data management mindset and how that data is leveraged for the active application, where its first copy of backup is, where its second and third copy is, and to ensure that that data is accessible. You practice like you play in that situation. You have to make sure that that data can be gotten and it can be brought back into the environment and reused in case a cyber event happens. So I think it's people, process, technology, and that all has to work together in that chain.
All right, so our keywords today beyond that are data management, architecture, convenience, consistency, right? Good way to sum up?
Absolutely.
Great way.
Absolutely.
Well, it's great to have you all in. Let's thank today's guests. Richard Breakiron, the Senior Director for Strategic Initiatives for America's Federal Sector at Commvault. We've also heard from David Rubel, Senior Business Development Manager for Federal Hybrid Cloud at Amazon Web Services, and Kevin Cronin, the co-founder and president of Kelyn Technologies. I'm Federal Drive host Tom Temin. You're listening to Federal News Network. Let's go back to the studio now for more on the industry exchange, data.